Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samueli. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show Crosstalk. Well, he's done it again. Our friend Glenn Greenwald has written another outstanding article on Substack, this time with the intriguing subject of what he calls the journalistic tattletale. Maybe some of the younger audience don't know the meaning of the word tattletale. It's something that you learned from an early age not to be. At school, you weren't supposed to tell tales out of school to teacher about what your fellow students were doing. Even if what they were doing was very bad and reprehensible, bullying, whatever, you were not supposed to be a tattletale. You're not supposed to tell teachers. So that's what he's saying.
Not a positive thing, that's for sure.
Exactly. His starting point is a New York Times reporter. She's a technology reporter whose name is Taylor Lawrence. Apparently, there exists, technology is booming all the time. There exists something called, I think, Clubhouse app. And on this Clubhouse app, it's an audio app. It's by invitation only. There are all sorts of IT, Silicon Valley types, entrepreneurs, libertarians have confidential discussions, and it's by invitation only, and they try to keep journalistic presence to a minimum for very good reasons, we find out. And so what happens is that journalists try by subterfuge to wangle their way in, not because they want to be informed or they want to learn something, they want to see where the debate is, but in order to snitch people out, to be the tattletale. And so what happened here is that she got in on this discussion on Clubhouse, and she then claimed in a tweet that Marc Andreessen, who's a kind of a maverick IT entrepreneur, had used the word retarded. Not the worst word in the English language, but not a particularly nice word. And this was, she rushed this out. He uses the word retarded, and so therefore, what a horrible discussion this is. And nobody upbraided him for the use of this word. After she sent out this tweet, the moderator of the discussion said he did not use this word retarded. To the contrary, the retard was what is the people who belong to that group, Wall Street, but I can't remember the name of that Reddit group that we were talking about last week, the ones who shorted the hedge funds. They call themselves the retards. And so somebody, not Andreessen, somebody had actually referred to them as the retards, because that's what they call them.
Because they refer that to themselves.
Exactly. That's what they call themselves, retards. And it's a kind of a play on words, obviously, because that's what they're trying to do to the hedge funds when they're shorting the hedge funds, the retards. So in any case, she acknowledged that, thanks for the clarifications. And then she closed her Twitter account down as if she were the victim of attacks. She's being persecuted by these terrible people. And so Greenwald uses this as occasion for the debasement of journalism today, which is not about challenging power, challenging Wall Street, challenging the Silicon Valley monopolies, challenging the national security state, challenging a horrific foreign policy. It's about policing what other people are saying on chat rooms. And that is in fact right. And that is what we've come to, where the mainstream media actually spend their time spying on others who are not in the illustrious media outlets, spying on them in the hope of getting them deplatformed and banned from any kind of presence. All right, what's your take, Peter?
Well, it's really interesting because I think you and I and people watching this video and people that we like and admire and respect would say that Glenn Greenwald is an excellent journalist.
Yep.
Okay, even if you disagree with his politics, he's a great journalist, and he has virtually no peer right now. but other people that call themselves a journalist are not.
Yep.
And I think that's why Tattletale really works well here. Think of Woodward and Bernstein, whatever you'll think of them, they did investigative journalism for Watergate, okay? All right, and some of the great journalists associated with the Washington Post and the New York Times in the early 70s, looking at the Pentagon Papers, okay? They were journalists, okay? They asked questions, they challenged power, and they challenged some of the pillars of the power system in the United States and the Western world. These people that call themselves journalists are anything but. You know, they're not particularly well educated. They're not particularly smart. And they basically debased the profession into trying to ruin other people's lives. This is their mission in life. They're ideologically driven. This is nonsense they've learned in the academy and learned nothing else. And it's really safe, okay? You go through the motions, you say the right things, and what do? Is that you wrap yourself in glory by destroying someone else. What an interesting profession, okay? I mean, this is like the Stasi, okay, or the Inquisition is what this is. And what it does is it not only destroys the profession, because we really should challenge power. I mean, of all these people that like to tattletale, how many of them confront foreign wars starting with George W. Bush all the way through Barack Obama and probably under Joe Biden, okay? Will they ever challenge that? No, of course not. It pays no dividends because you would be really challenging power. But going after other people that are doing investigative research or trying to simply understand how the world works that doesn't follow their intellectual, if you can call it that, because it's not, their ideological precepts, okay? It's a really, for me, it's a very primitive way to make a living. It's all about virtue signaling. I found something, he used a bad word, okay? Everyone pat me on the back. And if you're wrong, well, you tried hard and you were doing the right thing anyway. You see how perverse this is? It's totally perverse. And as a result, almost no journalism is being done. You have to go to Substack now.
Right. But no, that's exactly right. And we can see what the arc of what has happened here, because remember, what the internet offered when it kind of really took off in the 90s, it was the democratization of information. Suddenly, everybody now had access to information, whereas before you had the media had a monopoly of it, and powerful people could control it. And so you were able in those days to get people to go to war because people just didn't know enough about it. I mean, it's all the way up to Iraq. You could basically sell any war at all by telling them, these are the bad guys. Trust us. We know what we're talking about. We know about other countries. You don't. Shut up and support the war. And then, starting, I think, from the Iraq invasion on, suddenly people were exchanging information, saying, well, what are you talking about? Weapons of mass destruction? Well, what the hell? All the inspectors have said that there aren't any. And so,
oh yeah, but they're taking the babies out of the incubators.
Exactly. You could get away with that back then. You couldn't do it now. You tried pulling that kind of BS today with babies in incubators. It would be refuted on the internet within hours. And so, of course, the mainstream media retaliated. And how did they retaliate? By the usual thing of smearing: racist, homophobic, misogynist, a white supremacist. And so therefore, these people must be banned. And of course, they're spreading disinformation. In other words, information we don't like, ideas we don't agree with, and that's what they do it. And now what has happened is that they've co-opted Silicon Valley to do their dirty work. And so suddenly that democratization of information is really under threat. As more and more people are getting thrown off the YouTube and thrown off the apps, and getting censored on Twitter and so on. We suddenly say, well, what happened to this democratization of information?
What they want to control information flows. Again, the business model matters, okay? If you're at legacy media, you've seen your bottom line deteriorate right in front of your eyes, okay? within the span of a few short years. Okay, they want to grasp that back. They want to go after podcasts now because that's one area apparently there's an ambiguity. But the interesting thing is that how big tech plays along with these dilettantes, because from our perspective, they are violating their mission of an open and fair playing field by censoring. But these dilettantes, these tattletales, are saying, well, maybe we should pull out the Section 230 because if you allow this on your platform, you're complicit, you're a racist, you're a misogynist, okay? And so you could see the position that they're put in. And because of these people in Silicon Valley are predisposed to this ideology in the first place, they will default to these people because it's just kind of, they'll disappear us, but they don't want to have a headache with those people. That's the pathetic choice that we have right now. And you can build careers out of it. That's the thing. Look at Russiagate. Look how many people built careers on that hoax, okay? But this is one that you'll never be able to suck dry, okay? Because you'll always find an evil thought in someone's mind, even if they don't have it and they've never said anything. The accusation is enough, and this is what that's their business model, okay? And what it does is it makes people self-segregate to tribalize, to subterranean, and that creates more and more social tension, okay? Instead of just taking it on the chin and say, if he used that word, and apparently he didn't, and maybe he used that word in the context of a retarded idea, or we need to retard this process. Calling someone retarded, well, that was something that I understood was okay growing up. Okay, it's an unpopular word right now. I'm not going to die on that hill. Fine, okay. But it shows the lack of intellectual prowess. I mean, how is the word? I mean, there are nouns and there are pronouns and there are adjectives, and there's something called grammar out there. Okay.
Right. No, but that's it. I mean, and so what is really happening is the complete absence of serious intellectual debate. I mean, Greenwald, for instance, cites the attack that was launched on him after he rightly criticized Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for her ridiculous accusation against Ted Cruz that he almost had me murdered, and the fact that she spurned his offer of working together on legislation addressing what happened with the attack on the hedge fund by the self-styled retards, and he criticized AOC, and then somebody sent out a tweet according to this guy who runs Media Matters, not David Brock, I think David Brock's number 2, and the tweet said something like, Glenn Greenwald's hatred of women knows no bounds. An utterly idiotic, cretinous almost tweet. And as he pointed out, hey, I used to champion AOC. So, apparently I wasn't a misogynist then, but I am a misogynist now.
I've never heard of a gay man as a misogynist, but these are new times, okay?
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And so, yeah, and that's it. So you don't have to discuss anything. You just throw out misogynist, racist, sexist, white supremacist. End of discussion. Off you go, deplatform.
But see, what the fundamental problem with all this is it doesn't solve any problems. It creates problems, because if we can't have a common discourse, then we cannot resolve our differences, and we can't help enlighten your interlocutor. All right, and so this is the shutting down of discourse altogether. And it seems to me, and I guess. People that frequent our podcast, The Gaggle, is that this is another form of exporting the diversity grift into the culture and into business. You always need, you remember during the Second World War in the Red Army, they had these political officers, that kept an eye on the ideological purity of officers and the troops. And then at a certain point in time, the generals turned to Stalin and say, we really need to fight this war. Okay, can you tell these, pull the dogs off? Okay, we got serious business here. Okay, and they did. They said, "Oh, all right, fine, yeah, yeah. You know, we're going to have ranks again, and we're going to have medals." You know, and they weren't full blown on that. Okay, before it was all banned, and so this is what we're getting right now. We're getting the political police to monitor everything that is being said, not being said now, going back to what you said 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Thank goodness there was no internet when we were growing up, okay?
That's exactly right. And of course, this word diversity means exact opposite of what they're saying, because what they're really doing is eliminating all diversity. So it's like, you know, saying in the name of diversity, we are removing the opinions and people that we don't like and that we don't agree with. So we will have a really diverse set of views of only people who agree with us. So it's a real case of, you know, Orwellian, Kafkaesque or whatever, you know, use a word, a meaning of which is exact opposite of what it's supposed to mean.
There was a point in time in American history when the abolition movement was a very small minority, very small minority. And if we had had the internet back then, the people in power would have dismissed that and would have said that is ridiculous. It's not based in science and all that, and they would have squashed it. Okay, it's unpopular speech that needs protections. That's why we have protections for unpopular speech. Now, these dilettantes and tattletales, you know, their speech, quote unquote, is officially accepted, therefore, ergo, popular. And so they can make any kind of statement, make any accusation, and get away with it, okay? They're not held accountable. And this happens all of the time. You know,
I think that's right.
I made a mistake. I misread that, okay? And then there's no consequence.
Right.
But you destroyed someone's career.
Yeah, we've gone a long way from defending unpopular speech. I mean, the days when, you know, the ACLU defended the right of the Nazis to march in Skokie in the 1970s. I mean, that's long gone. No one even expects the ACLU to do anything like that today. We're getting to the point where we're just eliminating everyone who disagrees with it. It's not even whether it's unpopular. I mean, this is a discussion among IT people. There's nothing, it's neither popular nor unpopular. These are IT people exchanging ideas. I mean, this guy, Marc Andreessen, I mean, he's kind of a libertarian, like, you know, some of these Silicon Valley types are libertarian, but hardly a great controversialist. I mean, he supported Romney, but he didn't support Trump. But even the slightest deviation from orthodoxy is not to be tolerated. And that's why, you know, this reporter on the New York Times decided that she had to smear him, rushed out. You know, she didn't describe anything that was actually being discussed. She just rushed out. Oh, he used the word retarded. So that's it. So, you know, we're getting to the point where you're just eliminating even people who mildly disagree with orthodoxy.
But you know, you brought up the group, you know, the Reddit guys and all that, the retards and all that. You know, this is a different subculture, okay? And I worked in finance for a number of years. It's not politically correct, George, okay? Because their prime directive, what motivates them is greed. And so they don't care about the niceties of life, okay? They're not even particularly nice to people around them. I mean, if you're at a trading table and you know that the trader across from you has some information on his phone, when he goes to the toilet, you're gonna go to his phone and you're gonna open it up and you're gonna figure out what he knows, okay? He doesn't care. They may even be best friends, okay? But no, they're politically correct and everyone's sensitivities have no role in that room. That room is to win and screw everyone around you. One can stand, okay? And maybe when they go out, when they go to a club and when they're with their families and go to the PTA, they act completely differently. Right. But within a subculture, everyone has their own set of rules. Why should it be policed by an outsider that doesn't really even know what they're talking about?
Right. No, that's exactly it. And it's a very peculiar role that journalists adopt of policing, because journalists are supposedly interested in the free flow of information, the availability of information, getting information to the public, not try to suppress the exchange of information.
But having a free flow of information, challenging power. This is what we've forgotten in a short number of years. journalists were always in a position to call, go to the press conference.
Supposedly,
Okay,
that was supposedly the mission.
we always hit this roadblock. We always hit this roadblock.
But because I think even Watergate, I mean, if, who was the deep throat? Mark Feld. Mark Feld was one of the worst human beings ever to be, and he was driven by a resentment against Nixon because it was bypassable promotion. I'm just saying, Woodward and Bernstein are no angels in all of this.
But my point is that if you look at the press during the progressive movement, exposing work at factories, exposing the treatment of labor. This is muckraking, is what I'm getting at. I promise I will never bring up Woodward and Bernstein again, because we always hit a brick wall on that one. And I'm not defending those guys, but what I'm saying, compare that time to this time. Okay, look, think of the broadcast, because they had no cable then. Think of the broadcast. Walter Cronkite, okay, a real centrist, middle of the road guy, probably slightly left of center. Okay. But I mean, even he openly questioned on live television the Vietnam War. Okay. And particularly when the Pentagon Papers came out and said, are we being lied to? We need to find out. Okay, it's a comparative thing right now. Right now is that they want to obliterate and have Julian Assange die in prison. Okay, they want to make sure that Ed Snowden stays in exile forever. Okay, this is the sea change that I'm talking.
That is an extraordinary thing, and again, because Julian Assange and Edward Snowden challenged the media's monopoly on information, because in fact the media weren't doing anything. I mean, you remember that story, the Bush administration, the story that the NSA was collecting information about the public. New York Times had that story, but chose not to run it. So, I mean, if that's going to be your attitude toward a very important information, of course people like Assange and Edward Snowden go outside of the mainstream media to get this out to the public. But this is what has happened. And so, but in the case of CNN, I mean, this is truly obnoxious, because they are bullies, because they are going after people who already have no platform. I mean, remember that time when that elderly woman, she posted something on Facebook that CNN claimed was something manufactured by this Russian internet researcher. This CNN reporter accosted this elderly woman in her own home. Hey, do you know that you're spreading Russian propaganda? What kind of nonsense is that?
Or this guy that was making memes about CNN, and CNN threatened to dox him. Okay, an open threat. Okay, bullying. Okay, bullying is okay as long as you do it for the establishment's causes. Okay, because they do bully people quite a bit. All right, or the NASDAQ driver. They a rope that looked like a noose. So I mean, no one has been able to explain to me why. I'm making up a number here. I think it was 26 agents show up. What happened during the summer? Where was the FBI?
That's right. Yeah, no.
because there is hate speech worthy of attention, but any other kind of speech that is not popular with the powers that be, are certainly not looting and personal destruction and actually people dying. Oh, and the thousands of cops that were beaten up. Okay, they're not worthy of discussion, because these tattletalers, they don't want to hear that. Okay.
That's exactly right. And of course, the analogy now is that this investigation of the Capitol Hill riot, people are sitting in prison without bail, even though they're only being charged with misdemeanors. So they're sitting in prison without bail until trial. And we're told the prosecutors are building now sedition charges, which carry prison terms of 20 years. So, these people taking selfies are looking at 20 years behind bars. Meanwhile, everything that was going on last summer, hey, can't get to the bottom of that one.
Well, it's going to be a a star trial. It's going to be big. I wonder if they're going to try them all as a group. Okay. You know, are they going to get a sports hall and they're going to deck it all out with the cameras and the floodlights and everything? I mean, this is going to be a show trial, a huge one. Okay. And the Capitol Police aren't going anywhere. Okay. As I like to say, just because it makes me really angry, we have all of these mediocre politicians. They're all being protected by essentially a fence, barbed wire, and Joe Biden signed an executive order for the southern border. Come on in, everybody. During COVID, during an economic turndown, come on in, okay? But the Capitol, and how many people are commenting on that in the media? They're not.
Well, I think I said you got a fence protecting him, and then you've got the attack dogs, and the media are the attack dogs. In other words, those who raise questions about the election, questions about Biden's cognitive capacity, questions about Biden's ruling by executive decree. Hey, they get these attack dogs are unleashed on them, and that's a job. That's it. We're just attack dogs. You know, you keep them hungry.
The Biden family
exactly, the Hunter Biden and everything else. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, Peter.
It's a very, very, very narrow, very, very narrow. Okay. And Tattletales, George and I like to keep it clean here. So, but you know what I'm thinking.
Exactly. All right, then. So now, please remember, we are now on Rumble. So you go to Rumble and you can see videos on Rumbles. But remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.